she at? Where's she at?
She's at Costco. Yes, he's
Where at? Up here?
Up here. You got her
in the main room.
This is one of the...
Pretty much they were in the main room. I heard them dancing and laughing. Kaylee went upstairs and she screamed because someone was in the room and she ran downstairs. And I kept calling her name and she wouldn't answer. And then I saw the guy. I just locked the door and I ran downstairs. We don't know what's going on.
She saw a guy masked, about 6 foot, skinny build like a basketball player, she described. Said that he had a just full black mask, see, like a ski mask.
What time?
At about 4. Immediately after, she yelled and said there's someone in the house. This girl ran, locked herself in her room, could hear a roommate that was upstairs, Kaylee. Somehow she was able to discern that it was Kaylee screaming.
In the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022, a quiet college town in northern Idaho was shattered by violence. In a rental home just off the University of Idaho campus in Moscow, 4 young students were found brutally stabbed to death. The victims, Madison Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Zana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, were all in their early 20s. Friends and classmates with promising futures ahead. What followed was one of the most intense and wide-ranging investigations in recent American criminal history. A case that would grip not only the local community, but the entire nation. Questions about motive, identity, and justice would dominate headlines for years. Madison Mogan and Kaylee Gonsalves were best friends and seniors at the University of Idaho, both 21 years old. Zana Kernodle, 20, was a junior, and her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, 20, was spending the night at the house. The group lived in a close-knit, off-campus home at 1122 King Road, just a short walk from campus. On the night of November 12th, the friends had spent time socializing around town, at bars, food trucks, and fraternity events, as college life carried on without warning of the tragedy to come. Shortly after 4 a.m., an unknown assailant entered the house. For reasons that remain largely unexplained, the killer stalked through the bedrooms and stabbed 4 of the students multiple times. Autopsies later indicated that at least some of the victims were likely asleep when attacked, though some defensive wounds were found, suggesting attempts to fight back. 2 other roommates were in the home at the time, but by some unexplainable twist of fate, they survived the encounter. They were never physically harmed and later placed the 911 call that alerted authorities to the horror inside. When police responded just before noon that Sunday, what they found was a nightmare for the tight-knit town of Moscow, a place that had not seen a homicide in years. There was no obvious motive, no immediate suspect, no clear link between the killer and the victims. A knife or blade was believed to be used, but it was nowhere to be found. The only physical clue left behind was a knife sheath discovered near one victim's body. Authorities scoured the crime scene for evidence, releasing few details. With pressure mounting, they appealed to the public for help. Tips poured in, but the town remained gripped by fear. Students were afraid to return to campus, and many classes shifted to remote learning. Investigators combed through every lead. Surveillance footage from neighbors and businesses placed a suspicious vehicle in the area. Cell phone tower data showed a phone repeatedly pinging near the crime scene in the months leading up to the murders. And in a critical breakthrough, DNA recovered from the knife sheath contained a single male profile. That DNA would eventually become the key link in identifying a suspect, a man far from Idaho, yet connected through science and digital breadcrumbs. On December 30th, 2022, nearly 7 weeks after the murders, authorities arrested 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger in Monroe County, Pennsylvania, at his parents' home. At the time, Kohberger was a doctoral criminal justice student enrolled at Washington State University in nearby Pullman, Washington, less than 10 miles from Moscow. Charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of battleground, Kohberger was quickly extradited to Idaho to face the crimes. It was a watershed moment in a case that had baffled investigators and terrified the community. Prosecutors presented a multi-layered case built not on eyewitnesses, but on forensic science and data. DNA from Kohberger was matched to genetic material found on the knife sheath at the scene. Cell phone records showed Kohberger's phone in the area of the murders many times in the hours before and after the killings. Surveillance footage placed his vehicle near the house around the time of the killings. Investigators also noted that Kohberger had purchased a military-style knife and sheath months before the murders, the same type believed to have been used in the attack. Despite this evidence, one of the biggest mysteries of the case, why Kohberger allegedly committed the murders, remained unanswered. There was no known personal connection between him and the victims. In 2025, as the trial date loomed and anticipation mounted, an unexpected development occurred. On July 2, 2025, Bryan Kohberger took the stand and pleaded guilty to all charges against him. But this plea was not a confession offered voluntarily out of remorse. It was part of a plea agreement designed to avoid the death penalty. Kohberger never explained his motive. When given the chance to speak at his sentencing hearing, he simply said, "I respectfully decline." July 23, 2025. The court imposed 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 10 years for burglary. Judge Stephen Hippler noted the severity of the crimes, but also acknowledged that some questions would never be answered. For the families of Madison, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan, the sentence brought a measure of legal closure, but not necessarily emotional justice. The motive behind the murders, the why so many sought, remained elusive. The Idaho murders left deep scars on a community, on families, and on a generation of students who lost friends and classmates. 4 young lives ended abruptly and without reason, their futures stolen in the early hours of a November morning. In the years since, the world has watched, learned, and questioned. The case raised difficult issues about crime, evidence, the power of forensic science, and the limits of understanding human violence. But despite the answers provided in court, one truth remains. Some monsters endure, even after justice is served. If you like our content and want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to our channel by clicking the subscribe button below.